another edition of Southern Country. Hi, I'm Herb Southern. Welcome to the show, my friends. I'm very lucky to say I have a Western recording artist. His name is R.W. Hampton. He is part of Cimarron Sounds. How you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Good to have you on the show, my friend.
It's great to be here.
Let's talk about I Believe, something new by you now.
Well, that's my 9th album, and about 4 albums ago, I did a gospel album called Then Sings My Soul.
I know.
And just out of request from our friends and fans to do another one, we decided to do this last album, a gospel album. It was just time to do another album. And I love the old pop standard. It's been done pop, it's been done country, it's been done Western, I Believe. And so we recorded that song and built an album around it.
Okay. Plays tribute to our freedom fighters?
Yeah, I wrote a song there for our soldiers. You know, as I travel around the country, I meet a lot of kids that are just getting ready to go overseas, or they've just come back.
Yes.
And they were telling me a completely different story than what I heard on the news. That first of all, they were saying, we're welcomed over there for the most part, and there's a job to do, and we're happy to do it. And then my own son, my oldest son, who's 18, joined the Marine Corps. So I wanted to do something in tribute to our kids that are...
What was the inspiration behind that, just being able to do something for all our soldiers over there?
Yes, I live in a real rural part of New Mexico, ranch country, and a lot of the, just a huge ratio of kids that are graduating from high school are going into the service. And so our schools and churches, grocery stores are, you know, the windows are just filled with the little pictures, you know, of the soldiers and where they are. And I just wanted to do something as a tribute to them. Had nothing to do with politics or anything like that.
The whole album is basically do with the...
I call it, well, actually, if I could describe it, there's 5 songs of mine and 6 of Stuart Hamlin's.
He's a great guy.
Yes.
I played his music on the radio.
Yes, and I got to, of course, I had It Is No Secret on my first gospel album, and I got to know his widow, who's just right at 100 years old right now, and sharp as a whip, and then his daughter, who handles their publishing. And I found all these other great songs, so it's almost a Stuart Hamlin album.
I read that the music found on I Believe contains a blend of songs from R.W.'s heart and are fun, inspirational, and tender and poignant.
I like that.
That's good. Sounds good to me.
Yeah,
huh?
yeah.
That's why I wrote it down.
I like that a lot.
Hey, let's talk about R.W. Hampton. Born to be a cowboy. How'd you know you wanted to be a cowboy?
I guess it's just the way I was wired. You know, the good Lord's wired us all different, you know, and I was born and raised in Texas, north of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and always had horses in my life, and competed in high school rodeo. And in the summers, the first summer of my 16th year, I had worked for a ranch out in northeastern New Mexico. And I worked for the next 2 summers, and boy, when the 3:30 bell rang on my senior year, I was gone. And that's just what I wanted to do, was to be on a horse and be in big open country. When
did singing enter your life?
I started singing back in high school. I've always loved. I grew up listening to all the old. It's old now, it wasn't then.
No, it wasn't.
Johnny Cash, Merle Haggard, Lefty Frizzell, Johnny Horton, all those great artists. I know I'm leaving a bunch out, but I just like to sit in my bedroom with the door closed and play the guitar and sing to the top of my lungs.
How'd you learn to play guitar? You were taught, you self-taught?
I got a guitar when I was in my early teens, and I took a few lessons just to learn how to hold the darn thing, and then pretty much self-taught.
When did songwriting enter your life?
When I was working for ranches, cowboying, I got a great album by Marty Robbins called Gunfighter Ballads and Trail Songs.
I play it on the radio.
Oh yeah, we used to.
2 of them on that Gunfighters, I think.
We used to listen to that, and we didn't have any TV or radio, but we'd listen to that album, and so I'd hear a great song on one of his albums, and then I look at it and find out he wrote it.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, shoot, I ought to be able to write a song about my life, you know, what's going on in my world. And so that's how I got started in that.
You write what you live and you sing what you write?
Tell you what, I don't know where you're getting this stuff, but it's great. That's exactly right.
Yep.
Yep.
Cowboying was something I always wanted to do, so I followed my dream right after high school. I read that too, you know.
Yes, sir.
You just said that. When I was, how old were you when you first rode your first horse? You recall that? Getting on the horse for the first time?
I do, and I was real young.
Okay.
I was real young. I couldn't tell you exactly when it was, but I remember it, yes.
When you started to play in high school, people started to pay you for that.
Well, no, they didn't pay me. They just
Tank of gas.
they just gather around.
Okay.
And of course I kind of thought I'm really pretty shy, and but it must have fulfilled some strange part of me that a crowd would gather around when I played and sang. And it got girls too. I got to, you know, what the heck?
I heard that story
What can I say? You know,
it works.
And but I didn't get paid until it was about 1976, and I was still working for a ranch.
Right.
And this lady in Cimarron, New Mexico, had a saloon, Vera's Saloon. Her name is Vera Gorley. And she said if I come down on Saturday night, she'd put a jar in there and let me play. And I made $8.50. And I thought, wow, now that's pretty good.
When did you decide to give up cowboying and become a full-time singer?
Well, it was about 1988 when I made the full jump. About 2 years prior to that, I was being asked to play for a lot of livestock and agricultural conventions and get-togethers and so forth. And it was getting harder and harder to ask for a day off. From, you know, ranching, cowboying is a 7-day-a-week job, and so it's hard to get off. And so I thought it became a dream of mine. I played the Grand Ole Opry and had done some things like that, and worked in a couple of movies. So I did one with Kenny Rogers, and it just I got bit by the bug.
You bet.
And I thought, well, I'm going to jump off with both feet, you know.
Did you ever look back since that day? Saying, well, with a question mark?
I haven't looked back too much.
Okay.
I'm glad I lived the life that I did.
Right.
But
you're glad you're living the life you're living today.
Exactly.
There you
exactly. Go. And I'm getting a little bit older, and the music has afforded me to buy a little ranch of my own and afford the lifestyle.
Good.
So yeah, I've looked back and smiled and thanked the good Lord above that I got to do what I did, but I'm thanking Him now that I get to do what I'm doing now.
You just mentioned you have 9 albums. How has your music changed since album 1 to album 9?
I would say that each one of my albums is kind of where I am at that point in time. My first albums had real traditional accompaniment, which I still enjoy, don't get me wrong. It's not that I've outgrown it, and I'll probably at some point go back to that, you know.
What do you mean by traditional accompaniment?
Acoustic guitar, mandolin, banjo, and things like that. It was cowboy music with almost a bluegrass sound, you know, and we were getting some airplay up in Maryland and places like that.
How have you changed?
Well,
from day one to day today.
I'm getting a little bit older.
Tell me something new.
Oh, me. Well, life is an adventure, and some of it's joyous and some of it's sad, and I've had my shares of highs and lows, and I've had a cancer 3 different times.
I read that.
And so that kind of brings things into perspective. I've got 5 kids. I've got a 27-year-old daughter. I've got an 18-year-old son that I mentioned, a 17-year-old, a 13-year-old son who's with me now, and a 4-year-old son.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, you took a range there at 20 years.
Yeah. And so, you know, it's a job to balance your career with your home commitment, and it's important for me to make a living, and it's fulfilling to get out here and play music for the folks. But it's more important to be a good dad and husband.
How has your songwriting changed in 20 years since you started?
I wished, you want to know honestly?
We're honest now.
I wished I could write songs the way I did when I wasn't trying to write songs.
What do you mean? Tell me about that. You just don't try too hard then, in other words.
Exactly. Used to, I'd be sitting on the edge of my cot in the bunkhouse way out on the ranch, and I'd think of a pretty sunrise or sunset or a pretty girl that was a long ways away, get my guitar and get a couple of words and a pen and pencil and write a song.
Yeah. Well, you better go back to that bunkhouse. Am I right?
Yeah.
You're missing the bunkhouse.
Yeah. That's it.
Missing that pretty girl, missing that sitting under the stars.
I think I try sometimes too hard.
Right.
And I've got an album called Always in My Heart. That's an album of love songs that my wife inspired.
Okay.
And as long as I can look at her and talk to her on the phone every now and then, it's not too hard to write a song.
Hey, 1993, we'll go back a few years. The Last Cowboy, a one-man stage show set in the year 2025. You played an aging cowboy who looks back at the history of the American cowboy through monologue and song.
Right.
What inspired you to do that, Last Cowboy?
We were trying to, I say we, my brother and I and a playwright out of Dallas, Texas, were trying to come up with an entertaining and historically correct, I put the emphasis on entertaining, but historically correct way to tell the story of a cowboy in a one-man format.
Yes, sure.
You know, and I had seen Hal Holbrook do Mark Twain,
right,
and some of those others,
right.
And we came up with the idea of the year 2025, and this guy walks out and he is it. He's all that's left.
Yeah.
He's a sideshow curiosity.
Okay.
But as he tells the story and sings his songs, you find out he left Tennessee after the Civil War.
No boy.
Headed to Texas. And it just takes you on up to the modern days and on past.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. Where did you perform the show, and how was it received?
It's been received real well. The last time, I don't do it that often because it's quite an undertaking to take the musical people and a stage manager, producer along with me. We did it in March in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee.
Okay.
And the next time we're going to do it is in December in Monterey, California.
Have you modified that at all? It's still the same original show?
It's still pretty
much the same?
It's pretty much the same. And we had done an album with highlights from that, and we were real pleased with the way it was received. It won a Western Heritage Wrangler Award from the Cowboy Hall of Fame.
Just coming up with that next. That was my next sentence.
And the only reason why I don't like to talk too much about awards because you know, everybody's got them. But
it's honoring you as an.
I was pleased with it because it's something my wife and I did.
All right.
She was the executive producer on it, and so, you know, we were there with Tom Selleck and Sam Elliott and all those people, and honoring all the great books that were written and movies of that year and albums, and so we were real honored and tickled.
That award, if I'm going to go back 1 second, it said Western Heritage Center for Excellence in Dramatic Presentation, Original Music Composition.
Yes.
Am I right?
That's it.
That's it. Do most of the Western artists live the lifestyle they sing about, male and female?
Most do to some degree. Most of the people that I cross paths with, like Joni Harms, Don Edwards, Ian Tyson, Dan Edwards, Wiley Gustafson.
Yep.
Oh, the list goes on, and I don't mean to, but to not include somebody, but Red Steagall, they all live it to some degree, yeah.
What qualifies a writer to be a writer of cowboy music as opposed to other genres of music? Does he have to, like we just said before, does he have to live it to write it to sing it?
You don't have to have lived it. Now I lived it to make a living.
Yes.
But there are great people who appreciate it and have gotten into the lifestyle. I know Don Edwards and his wife Kathy have a ranch at the foot of the hill country in Texas, and you know, Don's originally from Jersey.
Oh, wow, okay.
And you never know it by listening to him talk, you know. Yeah. He's lived down there all of his life, all of his adult life anyway. But because of his love for the music, you know, he's lives the lifestyle. To me, cowboy or Western music is just the country music of the West.
Okay.
And you know, you got bluegrass and you got other other kinds of country music. You know, what's folk, what's country, what's western, what's cowboy, I don't know.
I think it's in your mind. What famous people have you shared the stage with?
Oh my goodness, Kenny Rogers. I did a couple of TV shows and a movie with him.
It's coming up. I saw that right.
I've done some things with Charlie Daniels, Ian Tyson. I did a strange show one time. It was great. With Charlie Daniels was the host. Had Roy Acuff, Ted Nugent, Little Richard.
Oh man, there were you.
Yeah, Chris Christopherson.
Yeah.
And that was probably the most diverse stage I've ever. The Righteous Brothers, you know.
Yeah. Who ever sang duet with anybody?
I've done duets within the cowboy industry.
Okay.
You know, our genre of music.
You appeared in 10 movies?
Yes.
Yeah. Kenny Rogers, and you worked with Ben Johnson, Richard Farnsworth, Buck Taylor from Gunsmoke, of course.
Right.
And Christopherson?
Yes. I found a niche there. I got a call. I had done a TV documentary on the American Cowboy with Kenny Rogers, and I just happened to be at the right place at the right time. And then several years later, his manager, Ken Cragen, called me on the phone, said, "We're shooting a movie of the week. We want you to have a small role in it, play the guitar and sing around the campfire, and you'll have this little ongoing role." And then through that connection, I started playing bad guys and bit parts. I'd always have some lines like, "Hanging's too good for you," or "Cut 'em off at the pass." And I'd always get stabbed, shot, or blown up.
Jesus, that's one way to go.
To live again.
There you go, the next movie. Hey, you sang the Grand Ole Opry?
Yes.
And you sang, you're the first person I think I ever talked to said the Smithsonian Institution?
Yeah.
What was that all about?
Well, the Smithsonian has an event every year called the American Folk Life Festival.
Okay.
And they had me up there on the mall, National Mall, playing the guitar and singing on the sound stage, and then we roped steers there between the Washington Monument and the Capitol out there on the grass. That was fun.
Hey, it says your life is guided by your faith, your love for your family, and your desire to share cowboy life with your audiences. True?
That's true. That's kind of, those are pretty good guidelines. They're not for everybody, but they're for me.
Charities. What do you help play for charities?
I do a lot of things.
Voice for the Kids concert?
Yes. We're going to be doing that. We've got that coming up with Walmart, and do some things. I've got a thing coming up next week up in the Tulsa area for St. Jude's Children's Hospital. And we've done, there's a Cowboy Cancer Crusade, and the American Cancer Society we've done some things for.
Just a curiosity on my part, you've been a cowboy all your life. Do the Westerns on television play it up true to form, or is it just all Hollywood out there? You
know what? Here's the great contradiction. It's all Hollywood, but we love it.
Yeah, okay. Rawhide with Eric Fleming and
well, Rawhide
was pretty true to form.
Yeah, I think Rawhide was true to form for that period of time, you know. But of course, the Gene and Roy, that period never existed, but we love it.
Absolutely.
You know.
Website.
My website. I've got a website, and could I tell you what my web address is? I don't have the slightest idea, because I never do tune into it.
I believe it's rwhampton.com. Am I correct?
That's it. Now that I've heard it, I know what it is.
I've got all this off the website.
I'm completely, I'll confess, I'm completely computer illiterate.
Yeah.
When we do emails, I'll come. In fact, I'll be back in the first of next week, and my wife will say, "Come on, honey," and I'll roll my office chair up behind hers, and we'll look at the emails, and I'll tell her what I want to say, and she'll type it.
There you go. Thank you very much.
You betcha.
On the show. It's been a pleasure having you, R.W.
All right, amigo.
You bet.
Thank you, sir.
Let's close it with another song, huh?
Let's do her.
All right.
Get her done.
Here's R.W. Hampton wrapping up this edition of Southern Country.